And hello, everyone. Welcome. And that was quite a debate between myself and Neff-Neph. This is an after show slash socially distanced COVID-free birthday party. So with that, let's meet some of the guests. Dr. Dan, aka Creation Myths. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. How,
Hello, happy birthday.
well, thank you. How do you think I did?
I was in and out because you are nearing birthday to a child. I was kind of in and out with inflating balloons. But the parts I caught were fantastic. I in particular really liked the exchange on the Oklo natural nuclear reactors because that's it. That's the end. Like that
Exactly.
as much as you can prove anything in science, that proves that radiometric dating is valid going back at least 2 billion years, and that's the ball game. The other
Yep.
stuff that I heard from Neff was boilerplate bad creationist science, like that last thing on that
Bottleneck.
bottleneck paper that looked at mitochondrial bottlenecks and found that a lot of species have mitochondrial bottlenecks within the last 1 to 200,000 years. And I love how creationists try to take that paper and say, therefore, young Earth creationism, because everything has a bottleneck at the same time, which one, that range is not at the same time. And two, 200,000 years is a lot longer than 6,000 years. So I don't know how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, neither
But
do
yeah,
I.
it was, I mean, it's standard creationist boilerplate. I think you did a really nice job of the parts that I was like paying attention to. You did a really nice job of addressing it. And in particular, I thought the Oklo exchange was it because at that point he wanted to talk about everything except Oklo, and you had to keep asking, but what
Right.
about this thing that shouldn't exist if you are right?
Right.
The if and only if framing was really nice.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure how much of the opening statements that you heard, but I went into a little bit of the philosophy of science and said, look, if and only if this happened, then we should observe X, Y, and Z, but we should never observe A, B, X, Y, and Z. We should, if and only if the global flood happened, we should never, ever, ever observe the Auckland Natural Nuclear Reactor, and that's what I kept trying to hammer him on.
Yeah.
Jordan, I want to thank you for sending me the PowerPoint that you used in your last debate with Nephilim Free. I think I kind of forced him to talk about the issue a little bit. How do you think the debate went?
Um, it went pretty well. He wasn't nearly as insufferable as he usually is, which, I mean, I guess that's saying something. Uh, uh, I thought that, again, I love the Oklo exchange. It was it was really cool. You finally got him to talk about it, and it revealed just how much he doesn't understand. Like, he always likes to talk like, oh, I can talk geology, I can talk biology, I can talk all this stuff. But if you get below that 1 inch layer of pseudo knowledge he has, there's just no understanding. And I thought that whole exchange did a really good job of putting it on display.
Right.
You know,
Jungle Jargon, welcome.
Yeah, hello. How you doing, David?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long my connection will last, or I probably won't stay very long, anyways. But I just want to stop and say hi, and because I haven't done that very much before.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. And of course, you're always welcome on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Orgay, how bad did I did?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo Dan and Jordan there. I'd say you did pretty good. Holding Neff's feet to the fire is always a tricky situation, and right, he just goes on, making up crap as he goes. That too small, edgy rant about the meteor, about the asteroid was, I mean,
bro, they're so edgy, bro.
That?
So edgy.
I think that I wanted to kind of take that as my new catchphrase. You know, every time someone says something I don't like, just say it's edgy and too small. I mean, yeah, you did great. I'm not gonna be on long because I can go to bed. And happy birthday as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Trice, what do you think overall?
It was a fun debate. I think you guys did a good job being civil toward one another, even though Neff kind of interrupted a lot. But still, at least there wasn't, a total dumpster fire. So that was cool. And, and I liked your, I liked your case and everything. The only thing is, with emphasis that you have on falsificationism. I mean, I just made a recent video about that, so of course I'm going to take issue with that, but that's cool. We can save that for another time.
Yep. Let's see here. A rational empiricist, welcome. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Good. Okay.
Yep, I kind of felt like Kamala Harris at times. Nephilim 3, I'm speaking Neff.
I got that reference.
Yeah. In my debate with him at one point, I was like, bro, if you interrupt me one more time, like, I'm going to come through this camera. Like, you know?
Yeah. Ask a question. David Neff starts to answer the question and then immediately interrupt. It's like, dude, let him answer the question. You just went for 9 minutes. Like,
Yep.
Let him talk.
Yep. Filibustering. I will say to Nephilim 3, I am really glad that he did not dish gallop like he usually does. In my last debate with him, I think he brought up like 30 different points in his opening speech. So I can at least give him credit for not dish galloping.
Yeah, credit where it's due. He was way more focused this time than he typically is.
Yep.
Which I think is why you were able to dig deeper into his understanding and kind of demonstrate, well, the lack of it, you know.
Yeah, and
It's
I am not a geology guy at all. So geology is not my strong point. But I did want to bring up, okay, if and only if this happened, then we should never observe the aqua-natural nuclear reactor, which I don't think he even really even tried to address. But ooh, assumptions.
Yeah. And just an open invitation, if anyone, ever at any time, I don't care what time it is, ever wants to talk about Oklo, reactors in general, but particularly Oklo, go to my Facebook page. I will talk to you literally all night.
Yes,
I'm a nuclear engineer, so please. Like when you two were going off on that, it was like I was like vibrating because he'd say something that was completely wrong, and I'd be like, ah! You know, it was like watching somebody use a computer program that you know very well. You know, it was just that feeling watching the film free try to.
Exactly.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yep, and I can confirm that I've had many great discussions with Jordan via Facebook, so definitely check him out.
Yeah, you know, as someone who is not well versed in the geology, but is trying to learn some of the geology, and I have some books on deck to help me along there. I might take you up on that at some point because, like, I remember learning about Oklo a bunch of years ago on Reddit of all places. It might have actually, now that I think of it, it might have actually been Gutsick Gibbon that actually wrote the original thread on it, that where I heard about it from. And then I subsequently went, did a little my own research into it and just blew my mind because it's such a beautiful example. And again, it's using the if and only if framing where, you have to set it up. Okay, we know from other methods, the formations are, 1.8 to 2 billion years old. Given that and how fission works, we can make predictions about what isotopes you expect to find in the present. We can check those. And then we can also use I think it's, what's the element that does the neutron? Does the neutron capture that only happens when there's neutron radiation. And then you can work backwards from that to say, okay, if there's, it was something 149 and 150, but I forget what element it is. But it,
I don't remember off the top of my head.
But whatever it is, it allows you to it allows you to work backwards and confirm the amount of fission, but also check the fine structure constant, which governs the rate of neutron capture.
You can determine, like, based on the isotopes of the fission fragments you can kind of infer what happened in the past because you get a certain signature depending on what happened.
It's beautiful because it immediately locks in a bunch of variables where creationists will say, oh, accelerated nuclear decay, and we can't tell if it's been the same in the past. But given this web of interconnected predictions all around the Oklo stuff, it locks in a bunch of those variables for the age of those formations. So 1.8 to 2 billion years. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And that's kind of what I was trying to harp in. If and only if this has happened, then we should observe this. And that right there is pretty much the game.
And it's also a really cool example of a prediction made ahead of time being confirmed, because the phenomena was predicted. The slide showed the guy. And when he predicted it, he was like, well, this is theoretically possible, but we'll never find it. But I mean, it could happen. And then, there it is just a couple decades later.
50, yeah, it was about 20 years, right? It was 56 to 72. It's so cool.
Which is really cool, yeah.
Right. You can't get more scientific than I predict X, and then we find X decades later.
Samarium. It was Samarium. Samarium 149 just neutron captures Samarium 150. Okay. And we can look at the variation in those isotopes relative to
and that'll tell you how much neutron flux there was. Got it.
Exactly. Yep.
Sorry,
and it locks in the fine structure constant, which is so important because once you start locking in fundamental constants like that it's like dominoes. That sets everything else in stone.
So Crimson Air had a question in the chat. He wanted to explain why the uranium enrichment at the site in question negates the possibility of the daughter element being pre-existing. So I think what they're asking is so we've got these fission fragments that are basically like the daughter. And so he's asking how come those couldn't be pre-existing and you wouldn't get the same observations. I think that's what he's saying. So first of all, fission leaves a very distinctive set of fission fragment of radioisotopes that they decay into. So the uranium splits into different atoms. It doesn't split into just one. There's more than one way it can fission, but you'll get a particular probability curve of isotopes if there is fission, and we can observe it in our nuclear reactors like today. And so by looking at the abundances of an isotope, you can tell that fission happened, and we get that kind of distribution at Oklo. It's not complete because some of it's gone, but you can see the distribution. You have isotopes at Oklo that you don't get in that prevalence in nature anywhere else. So first of all, you'd have to suppose, okay, whatever mystical process made these isotopes, it made it with one prevalence everywhere else on Earth. But at Oklo, it just so happened to make all of them fit this probability curve and also depleted the uranium just enough. There's a lot of just so stories, so that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
That's the basic level. You could go deeper into the stuff like Dr. Dan was talking about.
Well, on that exact point, Jordan, basically to bring it over to my side of the conversation, every single geologic feature on the planet is a just so story with the flood, right? Every single sequence you see, wherever you go, just so happened to be deposited by the exact same water at the exact same time as every other sequence throughout the entirety of the world. It's not what's happening right there. We found that, but there's hundreds of them all over the world that have that just so sequence perfectly. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You're basically if you want to invoke whatever awesome power, God, whatever, who arranged things in just such a way that it looked like there's fission, but there wasn't, and it looked like there was deposition. You can say that, and there's nothing logically wrong with you saying that, but that's a big ask, But why? Right.
Exactly. And coming back to some of the biology stuff, it seems like Neff-Neph has very limited understanding of basic evolutionary population genetics, population mechanics. I mean, it seems to be stuck in the 1940s understanding of evolution.
Well, you look at every paper he cites, that none of them were I wasn't born when any of them were written.
Right.
Yeah, the printing press wasn't around, and most of them were written, probably.
Right.
Oh, excuse me.
I do so I get he doesn't understand biology very well. Neither do I. # not a biologist. And it would be one thing if he was you know what? I'm not a biologist. I don't understand the biology. If he's going to make claims about it, then he should probably get informed. But I can respect when someone's that's outside of my field of expertise because I do that all the time. But he doesn't do that. He's oh, no, I'm a biology expert. I'm just not going to talk about it.
Right. That being said, Dr. Dan, I love what he said. He actually did try and respond to the African having the most genetic diversity. We didn't hear his response to that.
I heard a snippet of that. So I missed the beginning because I was in an exam review. My students have an exam on Sunday of all days, And so I had an exam review tonight, so I missed the very beginning. I popped in for a little bit, about 15 minutes in, and what I heard was Neff with a P saying that having more diversity in Africa contradicts evolution because evolution says diversity has to increase over time. Okay, one, that's not what any facet of evolutionary theory says. That's not that. No, that's wrong. No. But second, putting aside in general the claim about what evolution says, which I always love how evolution is personified as an entity in all of these discussions. Like evolution says X. Like evolution is an idea, sir, not an entity. But putting that aside, if you start like there were predictions made about global genetic diversity based on fossils in Africa decades before we had human genomes to test those predictions. And the predictions were always that you're going to find the most diversity near the origin. The fossils say the origin is Africa, therefore you're going to have the most diversity in Africa because the mechanisms of radiation necessarily reduce genetic diversity. So you're going to find reductions as you radiate.
Question, Dan. I've got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
You said genetic diversity. Well, Africa is a known ancient hub of commerce and everything, but as far as genetic diversity, more Y chromosomes and mtDNA are outside of Africa, not in Africa.
That's not true. No, you have more. No,
Yeah,
what it is jungle jargon. No, that's not true. What it is jungle jargon is you have more named haplogroups outside of Africa because there are more subgroups. So it's a nested hierarchy. So you start with a big broad group, and then you subdivide that as you get different lineages, and each subdivision has its own name. So you have more names for lineages outside of Africa compared to in, because you have more subgroups outside of Africa. But in terms of the number, in terms of the number of differences, in terms of the divergence between lineages, you have more diversity within Africa than you do outside of Africa. Don't confuse the names of the lineages.
I can see what you're saying, but I mean, referring to the Y chromosome and the mtDNA haplogroup, there are more of them outside of Africa than inside of Africa.
There are more named lineages outside of Africa because there are more divergence events outside of Africa compared to in, but there is more sequence diversity within the African lineages compared to the non-African.
And they're concentrated in the Mesopotamian area, which is the
That's not true. That's not true at all. I mean, this is simple, like just literally just counting the numbers of differences in sequences. You find the most differences between two, you can pick any two populations on Earth and tally up differences in their genome. And the places where you're going to find the most differences are between different sub-Saharan African populations. It's literally just counting.
But let me guess, there's more diversity in places like Ethiopia and Egypt because those were centers of commerce.
Ethiopia, yes. Egypt, no. Ethiopia is the epicenter of human genetic diversity. Anybody want to take a guess of why that is?
Probably because Ethiopia is where humans first emerged. I think the San people.
That's where we started.
We're all Ethiopians, baby.
That is
where we started. You can actually draw. You can actually. It's one of my favorite data sets on Earth. It's a measure called. It's called haplotype heterozygosity. It's a measure of diversity. We don't need to get into the math. It doesn't matter. But you can plot out different populations, and plot the amount of diversity against distance from Addis Ababa, and it's a linear distribution. It's beautiful.
So I have another question. Which is an older genome, the E3 or the A and the B? Which one is older?
I don't know the names of the groups and what they correspond to off the top of my head.
Well, my prediction is that the A, B, C, and the other E's all came from the E3s.
I know that L is generally accepted as the root. I don't know where the other groups are, like regionally.
The L is the mitochondrial.
By the way, I think my favorite creationist claim that came up is that there's only 3 haplogroups, therefore 3 clades, therefore that is by far my most.
No, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
That
But
is by far the favorite
Yeah, it's
claim.
it's the unrooted tree, right, with the 3 nodes in the middle.
well,
Right.
that's just it. They all go back to a time, and they connect up together.
Yeah, they
And so
connect
the
up
A,
together. What is a
B,
line when nodes connect on a phylogeny? What does that mean?
the A, B, C, D, and E all connect together in the same tree.
And what do those lines mean? Does it mean
Genetic
if you have
distance.
3 nodes that are connected, 1, 2, 3, with a line between them, right? If you have 3 nodes, what does that mean for those 3 nodes?
Yeah, it's genetic distance somehow.
It means that they are descended from each other, right? The lines indicate ancestry. So if you have 3 nodes where you've got A, B, and C, right? And I'm just using letters at random just to indicate the 3. Right? If you have 3 nodes, A, B, and C, where you got a line from A to B and a line from B to C, that means that either B is the parent and A and C are descended from it, or A
Or-
is the grandparent, B is the parent,
Or,
and C is the grandchild, or the other way around. The lines
Or
indicate
they-
ancestry.
or they all were descendants of the same paternal
Nope,
and
that's not
maternal.
how you read a phylogeny, sir. Mm-mm.
By the way,
If they were descended from the same thing, you would have a node in the back, and then you'd have 3 lines coming off of that node, right? So you have a parent and then 3
Well,
descendant
It
lineages.
depends what
Having
you're
those
assuming.
nodes connected indicates ancestry.
I mean, if they're all connected together, but they match up with known human history too. You know that, right?
I mean, if you go back 200,000 years, they do.
Well, the known human history is the Kushites, which is E3, the Mitzrayim, which is
No. Look,
E3.
Jungle, you can pull this on creationist channels, but don't pull this crap about Noah's kids and grandkids giving us the lineages here, okay? That's not going to fly. Give me a break.
No, it's known human history though. This is. I mean, you have to
It's
have.
not.
If you
No.
want to study
Give
science,
me-
Dan,
show me that. Look, I can pull up a comprehensive mitochondrial haplotype phylogeny. Like literally, it's like this. I can go into Excel and it's like the second most recent thing. I can pull it up and you can point to what lineages you think are which if you want to. But I will tell you, it's not going to match up with what you say.
because the H is like in mitochondrial, that matches up with the Jewish people and the Semitic people, and
hold on a sec.
the L's match up with all the African people except for the CY chromosome and the DY chromosome, because the L never left Africa. But the CY chromosome and DY chromosome apparently never went to Africa, except the D went to Africa maybe at a later time.
I would suggest that the reason they're not found in Africa is because they are lineages that diverged post radiation from Africa, and that is a more parsimonious explanation for the pattern rather than try to retrofit your pattern onto a Middle Eastern origin. Because let's take your phylogeny at face value, right? Let's say it originated in the Middle East and you have whatever pattern you're saying exists. Now, why then
Beginning with
do
E3.
all these other lineages nest within the African clade? Why is there an African most recent common ancestor?
By the way, before we get to that,
That's
hold on.
diversity. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, please do. It's your show, man.
Actually, I do mean to
And
interrupt.
it's your birthday, so
Yes, exactly.
And
you do what you want.
So I'm going to share my screen real quick. So this is the unrooted
Yeah.
phylogeny
Yeah, give me a
from Dr. Daniel Jensen, where creations get their 3 nodes, 3 haplogroups types. But the problem here is, as Dr. Dan pointed out in his video, is that this is an unrooted tree and not a rooted tree. Now, Dr. Jensen wants to root it over here, but the problem is when we do that, we get this. This is the clade. This is what we actually see when we start rooting it. That is a problem with Dr. Jensen. Dr. Jensen is not being honest, because if he was honest and created a rooted tree, we would see right away what the problems are with his whole hypothesis. So that's that.
What is the problem? What's the problem?
So the problem is Dr. Jensen doesn't root his tree.
Which causes what?
Basically,
which means that his 3 nodes, instead of being 3 coexisting common ancestors for 3 distinct lineages, they represent ancestor descendant relationships with each other, which violates the model that you are trying to convince everyone of.
And that's why when we actually
But how can you tell the difference? Because we can't sample their DNA or their mtDNA, and since they're probably almost identical anyways, what's the difference?
Because it's a nested hierarchy. It's okay. So the way this works is you look at lineages and you say, okay, I have 5 lineages, right? I've whatever, pick a number, and they have these specific things in common. But then these 3 have this other thing that's mutation that they share that the other ones don't. So you say, okay, the other 2 branched off, and then these 3 form their own subgroup called a clade. And then within that 3, oh look, 2 out of the 3 have this other novel mutation that the other one doesn't. So that one branches off, then the other 2 form their own clade, right? So you have this nested hierarchy where they branch off of each other.
But since they're all identical,
they're
all virtually identical. They could have a common ancestor. Yeah, they have to.
They obviously have a common ancestor, but they're not identical, and they're different enough that we can actually work backwards and see which specific. I mean, we know which specific mutations occurred in which specific lineages and in which order they occurred. And when
their trees are different trees.
The reason
they're different trees. They represent different trees. But then, since they connect to each other, is because they're almost identical. That's why they connect to each other.
That's not how. No, that's not how it works. No, it's not about being identical.
But each tree is a different tree, though.
What?
Your DNA. Have you taken a Y chromosome DNA test,
dude? Have I taken a Y chromosome DNA test?
A Y chromosome paternal test, yeah.
I did. Was it 23andMe? I did 23andMe. Is that? Do they use? I think they use nuclear DNA now. I don't think they do Y chromosome.
Well, that would be autosomal probably. But how about an HD? How about an MT mitochondrial test? Did you do a mitochondrial test?
I think they do a combo of mitochondrial and somatic. I think autosomes. Yeah.
Well, so do you know?
I don't remember my thing, but I think my lineages is not relevant to the question of how nested hierarchies work, which seems to be the problem.
Well, because if you told me what's your Y chromosome, I could tell you which of the 3 sons of Noah that you're descended from, and the same thing with the.
You could, because there aren't 3 nodes. It doesn't because okay, look, if you have
there's 3 trees,
right, and it's you've got like 3 things, right, that are connected, and then stuff radiates off of all those. The connections in a phylogenetic tree, like those lines, do you realize that those lines, you could replace the line with the words is descended from, right? So it goes A is descended from B, is descended from C. Like that's what that means. It doesn't mean they coexisted to represent the founders of 3
It's actually the inverse. My prediction is it's actually the inverse, is that A, B, C, and D all descended from E3.
Well,
because the E3 is missing. It's conspicuously missing from the charts that you're seeing. The E3 is always missing.
I'm holding back.
That's my prediction. That's my prediction for you, Dan.
No, Jungle. Okay, look. Okay.
You know how I know? You know how I know this, Dan? Is because Nimrod, the CY chromosome, is the son of Cush, which is the E3Y chromosome.
No, that's not how. All I got is that's not how any of this works. Meme. It's just not. Like, listen, you're trying to superimpose a very specific familial relationship onto a phylogeny that spans hundreds of thousands of years. Like when
and you're not?
No, he's not.
No.
You're not? You're assuming that it connects to apes. You're assuming that it connects to the chimps.
Bro, you're an ape. Like you realize that, right?
But you're making that assumption that it connects to the troglodytes.
No, it doesn't assume that. The math that we can use to test this stuff You can do it just based on like known historical events. You don't need to make any hypotheses about like when the human lineage diverged from the chimp lineage. You don't need to make any hypotheses about that in order to correctly reconstruct the human mitochondrial or Y chromosome phylogeny. You just don't. You can do it based on sequences from living humans, right? You can do it based on extant sequences and known historical events. You don't need to make any assumptions. You just don't.
Well, known historical events are the 4 sons of Ham and
I mean, do you dispute when Madagascar was settled?
Madagascar.
Yeah, do you dispute the
That
date
was
of the
with
settlement of
that a DY
Madagascar
chromosome?
or the Canary Islands or Iceland? Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, but it's relative though. It's
No, it's
relative
not
to
relative.
your
This is
beginning
we know, like
assumptions.
Madagascar was settled 1,500 years ago. The Canary Islands were settled 2,000 years ago. Iceland was settled 1,000 years ago. These things are not up for debate, and we can look at these settlement events, and we know based on sequence similarity what the sister population is, right? So for Madagascar, it's Indonesia. For Iceland, it's Scandinavia. For
So
Canary Islands, it's North
when
Africa.
does history become invalid? When does history become invalid then?
Presumably, it's valid in the post-flood era, right?
Well, I mean, these are known people, like Neff was saying, the grandsons of Noah. They're all names of the nations all around.
Do you dispute the date of the settlement for like things that happened in the last 3,000 years? Like that's, I mean, like we should be able to agree on the recent history of humanity, right? We're going to disagree on things from 100,000 years ago. But we should be able to agree.
Are you
on
going to
things
disagree that the
2,000 years ago.
nations? Are you going to disagree that the nations of Mesopotamia are the actual names of the sons and grandsons of Noah?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I'm not an expert on Middle Eastern paleontology, but
In
I have it.
Mesopotamia, you can go and check, and all those names: Assyria, Asher, all them peoples, the Canaan, Canaanites,
That's
Put, the
completely
Phoenicians.
That doesn't matter for the
it's completely
phylogenetic.
beside the point.
Egypt.
Is everybody else
It might
following
be
though? That when you do
helpful.
so there's a difference between a phylogeny and a pedigree, right? A pedigree is a family tree where you're tracking individuals, and a phylogeny is looking at the history of populations as they relate to each other. Is everybody on board for that distinction? Because I think that's where the problem
Right,
is.
they're going to be mixed. They're going to be mixed populations, yeah. But they're going to have the original haplogroups in their population. Like the Jewish ancestry always has the J2, the I2, and the Arab
Jordan, your poker
population
face
has
is
the
as bad as
J1.
mine.
I'm
And
trying
the-
because I too I'm an idiot when it comes to biology. So I'm trying to think like, how would I explain it to me? You know?
But
Happy
can you
birthday,
do you
Neff.
disagree?
I just wanted to say
Might be
happy
helpful.
birthday.
Yeah, Neff, this is your show. What do you want
Do
to talk
you
about?
disagree that the
Yeah.
Jewish
Hold on.
population has
Yeah.
Hang on,
As
actually, let me just say, Jungle, look, if you want to come on, we can talk about this. Like, we can take an
Yeah.
hour and talk about this, but this is Neff
Yeah.
show, so we should.
I think it'll be fun just having a discussion between you and Jungle Jargon, just one-on-one. I think that'll
What
be
the
fun.
hell do you mean by fun?
it sounds good. It sounds good. I don't want to take
What
away
happened?
from the birthday boy or anything.
Uh-oh.
Oh, where did?
It might be helpful because I know Dapper Dino recently came out with a video touching on exactly what Jungle Jargon is saying here. I'm interested to hear from Jungle Jargon. Do you plan on making a video response to what Dapper had to say to you?
Yeah, it's now that you mentioned it, I can go look at it. Yeah.
Yep, I did see that video, and Dapper Dano did a great job kind of tearing down the arguments.
Neff, I wanted to say happy birthday.
But
Hold on a sec.
just
Hang on, let Danny
remember
talk.
that
Hold on, I'm gonna let Danny
Then-
talk. I'm gonna let Danny talk for a minute.
No, I just wanted to say happy birthday. That's it. That's all I wanted to.
Well, thank you, Danny. I do appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, happy birthday, Neff.
Thank you. I do appreciate it.
How old are you again?
26.
Oh man, you're a baby.
Yeah, it's been a while since I was 26.
Yeah.
Hey, he's not the youngest person in the room here.
So call me email said 26 fucker, you look 18. I don't look 18, do
Eventually,
I?
that'll be a
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I
you don't
I
look-
can't stay too long anyway, so I'll just go ahead and go. But thanks, David, and I'll talk to you later
Sure.
sometime, Dan. And
All right.
Sounds good.
Gordon too.
Thank you,
Dra-
by the way, Jordan, thank you so much for popping in.
Drace wanted to say something too. So okay, I'll see you guys later.
All right, see you, Jargon.
See you.
Okay.
Call
so,
Me Emo needs to get a new computer so he can start making videos again.
Yeah, I love Call Me Emo. He's
Neff,
fantastic.
have you seen my video series? I'm on my I'm going to start my 4th video tomorrow.
No, I haven't.
It's
What's
all
your series about?
exposing speed of sound.
Yeah.
You should look at them. They're very short videos. They're like ranging from a minute to 3 minutes. Doesn't take long.
Danny, what's your channel?
It's called Phil Talk. I'll link it because I'm a nobody and you won't be able to Google it. I just made the channel last month.
Oh God! By the way, I'm just kind of looking at Smoky Saint just for the fun of it. Smoky Saint now has 666 subscribers.
Nobody else do anything.
Don't touch it.
Dr. Dan, it's in the private chat.
Thanks, I got it.
So, Crimson Air had another question. I don't want to dominate the conversation with physics because this is a biology nerd channel, but yeah. So he had a question about. He said, as a follow up to the other one, he said, if that uranium, meaning the uranium from the Oklo phenomena, for those who weren't present for the previous discussion, originated deep in the Earth, so like fountains of the Earth deep. Could an accelerated fission occur in a way that wouldn't be detrimental to life on the surface? So what's being asked here is one explanation for the Oklo phenomena is that if you sped up the fission, so if you sped up nuclear decay and nuclear processes, that you could deplete all of the uranium at Oklo within the time frame usually of Noah's flood or something. So there's several problems with that. So what he's asking is, if you did that deep within the Earth's surface, you'd have all that rock and water between Noah and the nuclear reactor. So when you increase radioactive decay, when you increase how fast it decays more, it puts out more radiation. That would be dangerous. But he's saying, what if you had all that rock to shield you, right? So this doesn't work for several reasons. First of all, it's the fundamental forces of physics that are governing how fast these things happen, right? So if you change them, if you change these fundamental forces, that's not going to change just at Oklo. That's going to change everywhere. And you have radioactive isotopes in you right now. Your food has potassium-40 in it. You breathe in carbon-14 and radon. We live in a radioactive environment. And so if the radioactive decay is sped up for Oklo, it should be sped up at least somewhat everywhere, right? Well, when you try to compress 2 billion years of radioactive decay into 6 months, it gets sped up a lot. And a lot. However much you think it gets sped up, it's more. I've done the math. I'd be happy to show it to you. I don't want to bore everyone with all these equations, but I've done the math. It's like a factor of over 1 billion. And it's a lot. So if you just scale up, so if you increase the radioactivity of something, then the dose will also increase, right? So the dose, that chart that Neff showed in the debate, the dose you would get just from food and water and the air you breathe, nothing else, would be like 10 nuclear bombs to the liver. It's ridiculous how much radiation you get. But let's forget that. Somehow, magic radiation shield, that's fine. When you have decay, nuclear decay, it also releases energy, which, when it bounces around, right, in the Earth's crust, it turns into heat. So nuclear decay equals heat. So if you increase the nuclear decay, you have more heat. How much heat, you ask? Well, if you take the present heat that we get from uranium and thorium in the crust right now, which we can measure by seeing the neutrinos that come out. We can measure how many neutrinos are coming out and get an idea of how much is happening down there. So if you take just that, right, and then just scale it up, the heat flux, meaning the heat per meter squared, how much energy the Earth is radiating, of Earth would be greater than the sun. Now, that's going to be detrimental to life. I'm not a doctor, but I feel like Noah would not survive. Like, forget buoyancy of the ark on water. Throw the ark on the surface of the effing sun and see how it survives, man. It's not going to do it. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yep. By the way, I'm not sure if any of you guys, how many of you saw my recent debate with SFT on the heat problem, but when he actually talked about the water shielding Noah and using the nuclear example, I asked Standing for Truth if he knew what the temperature was and how hot that water was. He didn't know. It turned out it would be like 600 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
Yeah.
yes, Standing for Truth has a couple solutions. One solution being that the water would have shielded Noah and the animals. The other would be, he also mentioned hurricanes that was be spawned by the Noachian deluge.
That would cause it to radiate outwards or something.
Yes. But of course, show me the math. How does that work? How much thermodynamic equilibrium? How much heat would that have actually removed?
I was actually inspired by that. I want to go in just because it's doing heat transfer is really complicated, but you can do it in general terms pretty easily. So I just wanted to see how much heat hurricanes actually radiate, and then say, okay, let's say the entire Earth was a hurricane, just the whole thing. How much would you get? That whole debate was SFT going into super huge detail. He's designing this jet plane, right? And he went into deep detail about how the hamster-driven engines are going to work. And okay, that's cool, but that's this much thrust. We need this much thrust. How are you getting there? Your hurricanes, your jet plumes, who cares? We're talking about the sun, man.
Yeah, exactly. How many hurricanes would it actually take to remove all that heat? And 600 degrees.
Now it's my turn to say, not my field, not an expert, but I feel like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
A lot. As a mechanical engineer, the answer is a fuck ton.
Yeah, and another creative answer that is given by them is the expansion of space, some form of relativity and all that. Somehow the expansion of space would have removed some of the heat, but that means they would have to accelerate the expansion of space.
What?
What?
Yes. Yeah. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not.
So, are they talking
That's
the
not how
expansion of
expansion
space is like a supercharged ideal gas law? Is that what they're saying?
Let me pull it up because I really wish I was making this up.
Because I've heard the whole when you had the fountains of the deep, when they erupted, they're under pressure, and so when they expand, that's going to cool down. I've heard that. It's still not enough, but I see what they're saying, but I don't understand how the fabric of space-time is playing into that. Most heat transfer calculations are non-relativistic.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So this is directly from Dr. Snelling. The accelerated nuclear decay. Another mechanism needs to be explored, such as the volume cooling effect of a sudden expansion of the fabric of space. The discovery of plentiful lunar halos and metamorphic rock extends the application of the hydrothermal fluid transport models, etc., etc. The model would set a rapid timescale. Only a few days will be required for the temperature to drop below 150 degrees Celsius, and polonium radio halos when formed. It is also evident that polonium halos could be associated with deposition in metallic cores. What was that?
Wait, hang on. Can we just go back to that line for a second? Only a few days will be required for the temperature to drop below 150 degrees Celsius. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, let me actually share. Do you want me to share the screen?
Only a few days. Just that line, though. Only a few days will be required for the temperature to drop below 150 degrees Celsius. So he's saying, this is Snelling, providing a model that is supposed to work, saying Noah and his family and all the animals on the ark and the surface of the planet and the oceans only have to survive for a few days at temperatures over 150 degrees Celsius.
I didn't understand what they were saying until you just dropped it like that. That is amazing. He's like, look, I know we're on the surface of the sun, honey, but it's just for another day, okay? Like, tough it out.
Here we go. Another mechanism needs to be explored, such as the volume cooling effect of a sudden expansion of the fabric of space. The discovery of plentiful polonium radiohalers and metamorphic rock extends the application of the hydrothermal fluid transport models for polonium halers formation to the rocks, with powerful and far-reaching implications. The required hydrothermal fluid flows dictated by the formation of the polonium radiohalers could confirm the model that regional metamorphic complexes were produced by hydrothermal fluids transformations of the minerals and deeply buried sedimentary rocks. This model would set a rapid timescale of the formation and cooling of the regional metamorphic complexes. Only a few days would be required for the temperatures to drop to 150 degrees Celsius and the polonium radiohalers then form. It is also evident that the polonium radiohalers could be associated with deposition of metallic ore. So, yeah, this is directly from Dr. Andrew Snelling.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is, again, that is proposed as a solution. You only have to survive for a few days at temperatures 50% higher than the boiling point of water.
Right. Like, so you started at 27,000 K, right? Which is
by the
more
way,
than the surface of the sun. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sorry. I just want to point it out there for comparison. The hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth was 56 degrees Celsius.
So you started at 27,000 Kelvin, right? And at that point, it doesn't even matter if you're in Kelvin or Celsius. It's the same. Like, it doesn't. You're so high, it doesn't even matter anymore. So like you start at 27,000, and after a few days, it's okay. We're finally to the oceans are merely boiling, like. They're not superheated plasma anymore. Now we're just in a boiling ocean. It's fine. It's like that meme where the dog is at the table and everything's on fire.
This is fine.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. Hey, Ian, what's up, my friend?
Hey, hi guys. I'm going to be really quick. I just wanted to kind of say two things. Firstly, a big happy birthday, David, to yourself. I sent you a little gift, so hopefully you'll get that shortly. But happy birthday. Hi, Dan. Hi, Jordan. We haven't met, but you've had some great debates that I've really enjoyed. The second thing and hey, Danny. And the second thing, and hey, Drace. And the second thing and Fashion Experiences. The second thing I wanted to introduce you to is little Victoria. Here we go.
Aww.
She's 11 days old now, and she's been keeping me awake for the last almost 2 weeks. But I just wanted to kind of say thank you, Dan. I've been following your footsteps. I know you've got 2, so I'll have to get another one shortly.
I got 4. You gotta pump those numbers
4.
up. Those are rookie numbers.
How the hell do you manage, Jordan?
Man,
Jesus
so
Christ.
It's a common myth that all babies are cute. It is false. But that said, that is a cute baby. That is an adorable baby.
Yeah.
Actually, this baby needs a feed soon. So as I said, I've got to go soon. But a big happy birthday, David. And sorry I can't stay. And
Well, thank you. It's perfectly fine. And congratulations on your precious little baby.
Thank you so much.
I look at babies. I look at babies like classical music for most. Like they could see why, like from a distance, they say maybe that's a good thing to like value. But it's like way over there in terms of.
So
like I can't.
He didn't like what you just said, Danny. She totally disagrees.
Here's what you
guys got to feed this little one here. So happy birthday again, David. G'day everybody, and take care, guys.
All right,
So-
you all. Thank you, Ian. I
Bye.
appreciate it.
Here's-
Okay, no
Ciao,
worries.
here's the
See you
thing.
guys. Bye.
Here's the thing about babies. Until you've had one and you can smell the part on the top of the head, like every parent knows what I'm talking about. It's like free crack all the time. You know, we're wired by evolution. Like it is just it. I saw a SMBC, a Saturday Morning Breakfast cereal comic on it. And he's like, imagine, okay, you had a pipe in your house and it would give you cocaine anytime you want. But occasionally it spews raw sewage. And the guy's like, yeah, it's probably worth it. That's kids.
I wish I had your inclinations. Well, Dan, you're muted.
No, I know. I'm bad at this. I keep myself muted so I don't interrupt things, and then I forget. No, it's so much fun.
What it is? Jordan, can you attest to this?
So teenagers are a lot less fun. I can say that. I've actually called my mom and like been like, I am so sorry.
I've already had that conversation, and my oldest just turned 3, and I've already had that conversation.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's so much fun though. Once they can like converse, and it's just like, wow, you're a person. This is wild.
Yeah, and
because I'm at the age, I'm 28 and my girlfriend's 30, so we have to think about it, and it's something that like it's on my mind, and I'm trying to get a survey of everyone that's gone through it, and I have a lot of people that say it's like you got to be careful because, you know, if you're doing, first of all, if you're having kids with the wrong person, that's horrible.
I have an ex-wife, so yes.
Okay, yeah.
Hey,
And so,
a friend that has a lot of kids once said, this was before my wife and I had any kids. He said, it's the greatest thing on earth, but it's the way he put it was all joy, no happiness.
yeah, I've never, you see, like when I was a Christian, they would say stuff like that, right? Like, oh, it's Christians are, we're not supposed to be happy. Like, it's not about happiness, it's about joy. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about right now? Like,
so I'll say first of all,
wrong, but that is wrong because there are moments that are just laugh out loud funny and just delightful, and it's like you realize you're actually having a conversation with this tiny person
that you created.
That person is actually thinking and like putting things together and like coming up with new thoughts. And even I'm just talking about 3 years old. And it's like, how is this happening? But this is fantastic.
So 2 things. First of all, having kids isn't for everybody. So, you know, not everybody totally, you know, and you're never ready to have kids. You can definitely be better off, you know, have a job, have a house, you know, all that stuff, but you're never ready. So that you're never, very rarely are you going to regret having kids because it's just, you're just wired that way, right? But talking about the whole like their thinking thing, my second daughter, Lexi, she wants to be an engineer when she grows up. And in my house, I'm a skeptic, but I like to inject some magic in my kids' lives, you know. So they tell me, Daddy, the tooth fairy isn't real. And I'd be like, well, how do you know? What's your evidence? You know, show me. I was assuming they wouldn't notice I was committing the argument from ignorance fallacy. And right. So, and they'd be like, Dad, everybody knows. It's like, well, that's an opinion. That's not evidence. So one day Lexi was like, Dad, tooth fairy's not real. And I was like, what's your evidence? She's like, well, I lost a tooth last week and I put it under the pillow here and at Mommy's house, and I didn't tell anybody. And if the tooth fairy was real, she would have known, and she would have gotten the tooth. And I was like, "You got me." Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So it's definitely all joy, some happiness, but like it's hard to explain because like it's just like pure meaning, you know, like you're contributing. You are a fundamental part of this other human being's life. And
see, I've been a school teacher for 5 years, and I get all of that from I mean, I teach from ranges of like 13 to 18. And I can, I mean, well, with respect to kids, you know, like have y'all seen y'all have Netflix, right? You know, there's like the skip intro button for like your show. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to press that button.
But here's the thing. I will say though, that so like what Ian is doing right now is the hardest part. Like you do not sleep. Your schedule is all effed up. It's just like it's impossible to function as a like normal human being. But once you get past that, like I will say that the sleeping through the night line is the most incredible thing. The first time you wake up at 6 a.m. and you look at each other and you go, did you get her in the middle of the night? No, did you get her in the middle of the night? And you realize she slept through the night. That is the most amazing thing because it means you can start to be a person again. And then once you can do that, then you get to things like my younger one right now is just starting to eat like food. And so like we had Thai the other day. So she had a veggie spring roll and like, so she's sitting in her high chair with no teeth, just sitting there like gnawing on a veggie spring roll, laughing her head off at how delicious this thing is. And like, yeah, I have to change diapers and things, but like, that is amazing. And like,
Yeah.
how else do you get to experience that?
You know what
It's-
this confirms,
And again,
Dr.
I'm
Dan?
not trying to convince anybody to have kids. I'm just saying
You-
there are positives even when they're like teensy.
You know what this
Well, you're doing a
confirms?
good
That
job.
the beauty in this experience, God must exist, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
what about babies, man?
how could you account for the value in the world like those experiences, Dr. Dan, right? God must exist.
Because we're wired to appreciate that kind of thing, so we do it more and more in the
Yeah.
alleles that make you
Look, I was
appreciate
joking, but now you're getting into nonsense territory. Okay, but
Anyone who says that has also not had their toddler like piss on the wall, like
yeah, so we could frame the problem of evil with respect to, God
Yeah.
would have made the world in which toddlers would have not pissed on the wall. They would just
Right.
eat spring rolls and be happy, like
You could redo every one of Plato's dialogues, but do it for like a 6-month to 3-year-old, and you
sure.
could frame all those arguments exactly the same. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, my kid throws stuff and he has temper tantrums and stuff, but sometimes we're having a movie night and he wants to feed me gummy bears and he's like waterboarding me with gummy bears, but I'm eating all of them because he's so happy,
Neff, you're getting to the age where you're starting to consider children. What are your thoughts on this, this debacle?
Me?
Yes, the person named Neff.
Well, I suppose I should say this. There's a reason why I'm gay.
Well, you can still have kids. What does that have to do with getting
You can
kids?
still adopt.
Yeah. But anyway, I plead the fifth on the whole issue of children.
Oh my gosh, you're boring.
Well, don't worry.
Don't push him on it.
I'm
Don't push
pushing
on it.
him.
Yeah. Hey, I bought myself. I treated myself to a birthday gift. I bought myself Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing that thing like crazy.
Good game.
My partner bought me a Nintendo Switch for the holidays, and I started. I played. I played the Link's Awakening at least like 2-3 times, and now I bought myself Breath of the Wild, and I've been addicted to that.
I bought it and I played for 10 minutes and I never played again.
So I will say, its gameplay is really good. The story is a little weak. Like it's kind of both its strength and weakness. It's like, hey, here's this open world, do whatever you want, and
Right.
that's fun. But also, it's kind of like, well, what do I do?
Yeah. The thing about Link's Awakening is very linear. You do this, then you do this, then you do this. That's the idea. Have a thought on Breath of the Wild versus Link's Awakening.
Do you play PC games, Neff?
No, I just play Switch.
Hey Neff, I'm just gonna jump in to say happy birthday and good night. It's 1 a.m. for me, so I need to go to bed.
All right, good night. And yeah, I'm probably gonna go to bed pretty soon anyway. But
Have a
that's
great
the
night,
end.
and excellent job in the debate. That was fun.
Yeah, definitely. And
Great seeing everybody. I'll catch you
Good
later.
night.
all right, good night, Dan.
Don't
Good night,
forget to watch
everyone.
those videos. I'm right.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening are very different. The art in both are just absolutely beautiful. I just hate the ending of Link's Awakening.
I don't know much about
I
it.
haven't played Link's Awakening.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is interesting. It's open world. You can do it whatever order you want. It's definitely very different from Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening is very linear. You do this, you get an item in this dungeon, go through and all of that.
Which is kind of the formula they've had historically.
Right.
Even in like Ocarina of Time, which was kind of open and like you could go and do stuff, but like it was very clear it's time for the water temple now,
Right. And now I did the first the first 4 shrines, and now I'm over to try and free the first divine beast.
Anybody for either Diablo or Age of Empires or Sacrifice?
Not the last one. I'm not familiar with the last one, but the other two, yeah. For sure.
The other two.
Sacrifice is fantastic. You basically play like a wizard / necromancer fleeing your home world, and you come across this new world that's ruled over by 5 different gods who all can't stand each other, and so they basically start hiring you to go to war with the other gods, and you're kind of like this mercenary who gets to choose sides. The really cool thing about the gameplay is that it's not, you know how in Age of Empires you kind of have this bird's eye view of the battles being waged. In Sacrifice, you are right there in it, seeing like all the explosions and the spells and the crazy things going on, and so it gets really interesting. And you have to battle against all these other, champion wizards that are allied to the particular gods. It's a good game. I would highly recommend it.
I just looked it up on Steam. It has very favorable ratings.
Yep, it's an old one, but it's worth it.
I mean, I'm down with old games. I built my previous gaming machine, $1,200 or whatever, and then the first thing I played on it was KOTOR, which is like, a 15-year-old game or something.
Yep. Of course, Link's Awakening is almost 30 years old. Remastered for Switch.
I'm a big.
I just wanted to ask you. Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
No, go.
Well, I just wanted to ask Neff really quick because I saw that you focused on the falsificationism thing this evening. I was just wondering, I've since made it private, and I'm kind of on an internet hiatus. I'm breaking my rule tonight because I wanted to come in and see your debate. But I was just interested to see whether or not you got a chance to view the video when I had it up, or if not.
No, I'm sorry. Were you trying to share a video?
Oh no! I made a video recently on falsificationism, and I was critiquing it, and I just noticed that in your opening statement, you kind of made a reference there. You were building your argument from a falsificationist perspective, So I was just wondering whether or not you had seen it or not.
No, I have not seen your video yet.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, and Drace, about that, I think I only saw a little bit of it, but there's like a difference between someone that holds to falsificationism and then just taking falsification to be one of the epistemic virtues with respect to scientific or empirical claims. But yeah, I'm sure you distinguish that, right?
Yeah, I do. I distinguish that. I repeatedly say throughout the video that if you want to use falsificationism in the sense that it's a virtuous thing to try to go about, falsifying your hypothesis, that's totally cool. It's a separate issue about whether or not you want to use that to characterize all of science and to demarcate science from non-science. So that was.
I think at best it only demarcates, not even, but let's just say, it demarcates empirical and non-empirical, right? Because I don't want to say that all empirical endeavors are scientific endeavors. But perhaps not.
But if you make a claim that's unfalsifiable, right? So if say you have two competing unfalsifiable claims, and I assume that neither one is like logically inconsistent or something like that, like how would you distinguish like which one should we go to? If you can't, if the evidence
do they generate the same predictions?
Right, like. Well,
then they would just be the same theory if they did.
So I guess that's maybe I'm using the term incorrectly. I would say like if A generates a prediction you can test, then it's falsifiable. Or am I wrong?
That's totally.
You're talking about explanations, right?
Yeah, like you have phenomenon you model A and model B to account for it or whatever, and then they make another prediction. That prediction should be falsifiable, otherwise how are you going to distinguish between the two? Am I completely off base? I don't think
Trace would contest that, right?
No, I don't really have a problem with, like I said, if you want to set up a test to potentially falsify it, that's totally cool. My thing, though, is that when Popper talks about this, he's saying that you can only go about this kind of testing in a deductive manner where you're never really proving anything. you're only just discounting things. And that's the only way that you can go about science. So you can't try to, for example, verify something by finding positive evidence. Or you likewise, for example, something that I focus on in the video, in phylogenetic analysis, Bayesianism has really come to the forefront in the last couple of decades. And if you look at, for example, Gutsick Gibbon has a few videos where she like really gets into like, wow, like a Bayesian phylogenetic analysis for this or this. The problem though is that a Bayesian phylogenetic analysis is inductive. It's using a confirmationist approach. It's an explicit denial of how Popper would go about it.
The philosophy of science, I think I do agree with you that scientists need to do some philosophy of science for sure, because there are problems with like how do we account for a scientific explanation versus a non-scientific explanation. I think that's just a profound issue for me, at least. I think I agree with you that Popper only. I don't think I would accept his falsificationism, but it's something to like incorporate. I think on a
like to Jordan. Level, Yeah, I agree. And to Jordan, I would say like, yeah, if you're interested in going about testing your theory and coming up with different ways that you can falsify your hypothesis, that's totally cool. And that's definitely legitimate science. But the second that you tell me that that's the only way that you could go about science, where I'm only allowed to work in a deductive way, where I'm only allowed to falsify my hypothesis and I can't try to prove that it's true. Or for another issue of controversy would be like explorative science, where you don't have a hypothesis that you're testing at all. You're just trying to find out like, what kind of a molecular sequence that you have, or any number of various things that we don't know yet, but just by going and checking it out, we find out the info. How do you accommodate that if your entire conception of science is just operating in this deductive manner where you're falsifying things? I'm trying to say that I think that's really overly simplistic when you try to go about it that way.
Well, only the Sith deal in absolutes, but
that's an absolute, right?
Well, peace is a lie, and there's only passion.
You must be a Sith, Jordan.
So it seems to me, and far from an expert, so I'm happy to be corrected, but it seems like that's a more useful kind of way to think when you're trying to distinguish between two different kinds of claims. Like usually when someone makes a claim and it's unfalsifiable, it's like, how would I go about, for me, it's more about like, how would I go about learning if this is true,
Deductively.
So
another question sorry, go ahead,
also,
Jordan.
I also think that perceptions themselves that's not something that like you can, I think in principle, how would you put it, test for?
So one thing that, Jordan, if I remember right, you're a fan of Sean Carroll, the physicist, yeah?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he recently got some flack. There was a lot of controversy because they had this annual thing where they ask what scientific idea is ready for retirement, and his proposal was falsificationism. And his argument for this was basically that there are certain theories in theoretical physics right now that you can't falsify. And so his thing would be like, okay, does that mean that none of this is science because we don't yet have the capacity to falsify it? That's not one of my arguments that I give in the video, but since I know that you like Sean Carroll, I'm just interested how you would respond to his line of thinking.
So I'm not committing myself to falsification as the only valuable way to learn something, but I've heard him say that. Mainly talks about like string theory in that context. I think there's a difference between something that is not falsifiable in principle and something that's not currently falsifiable. Because like different models of string theory make definite predictions. They're just, we don't have the energy. We need a particle accelerator the size of the solar system to test it. But like it is at least in principle falsifiable, and that at least feels different to me than a completely unfalsifiable claim like the universe was created last Wednesday. Well, I mean,
yep.
I can't possibly falsify that claim. but why should I believe it?
Yeah, I think that's a good rejoinder there. Focusing on what's possible in principle versus what's possible right now. I think that's something that you could argue against Carol. But insofar as you're saying though that you're not committing yourself to falsificationism as the only way to go, then you and me are in complete agreement on that. Because something that I say in the video several times is that I think that it's definitely a very useful and important tool in the scientist's toolbox to go about trying to falsify your hypothesis if you have one. It's just that I stomp my foot when you start to say that science is completely defined by just that one method, where it's particularly in Popper's sense, because again, it's a deductive procedure. You're not allowed to use any kind of inductive or abductive reasoning in going about evaluating your hypothesis. It's all just a matter of disproof rather than confirmation or arguing to the best explanation and things like that. And I think that those are also very useful tools in science.
So I'm just a dumb engineer, and as an engineer, I value what works. As long as it works, I'm down. So it seems to me falsification has gotten us really, really far. So it works super well. So that's why I like it. If you have another method that works just as well, I don't care. Whatever, as long as it works.
Well, I think what he's saying is like there's certain kinds of scientific questions, like let's say in the past, that are not going to be falsifiable in the strong sense. But they're going to be some kind of probabilities or some kind of inductive accounts or abductive accounts, as Dre said. That will lend us to the best explanation, but it's not going to be like falsifiable in the strict deductive sense.
Well, one of the things I want to say here is because Jordan is saying like falsificationism has worked for us, but one of the things that I talk about is that that the assumption there is that science is operating on a kind of falsificationist procedure. But I want to contest that, because when you look at the way that scientists actually go about practicing their profession, they use inductive and abductive forms of reasoning all the time. It's not a purely deductive procedure. You find all sorts of situations where they try to verify or confirm a particular hypothesis, or try to argue toward a best explanation for something, or they're just involved in purely explorative research where there's no hypothesis involved at all, and they're just simply trying to learn like a new piece of data. And so the idea there is that it really, there's a particular quote that I give where there's a fellow basically saying that falsificationism is kind of drilled into the heads of scientists in graduate school, where they're, it's basically said that, Popper's view is the gold standard. But when you take a look at the history, you find out not only is it not the gold standard, but that it never was the gold standard, that the vast majority of philosophers of science always recognize problems with this account. And when you start to look at the way that scientists actually go about their reasoning and their research, you find that it's not merely a deductive method, that there's many different kinds of reasoning involved in the way that scientists practice their profession. So when you say that falsificationism has worked for us, falsifying hypotheses surely has worked for you. But the idea that you have only relied upon that one method of reasoning, I would say, is not true. That there have been many examples of you guys operating inductively and abductively. Bayesian phylogenetics is the one of the examples that I gave, where that is an inductive procedure that's used in phylogenetics. It's not the deductive falsificationism that Popper requires of you.
I didn't say that falsificationism. I was saying that falsification has worked well, not falsificationism.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. And if you're saying that, then again, there's no disagreement there. I agree that it's a very good tool to use.
I'm sort of privy to what Jordan said. I mean, I just don't. I mean, I have to think about it more. But I this idea of being in principle falsifiable seems essential. I don't see how. I don't think that's falsificationism, though, right? Is that your view, Trace? Because I think that any empirical postulate, right, makes predictions that can be either met or not met in principle. Whether you were there, whether you can be measure the or confirm those predictions or not is a different question. But I just think that if it's an empirical venture, it generates predictions, and those predictions can either be met or not met. They're going to be contingent facts. So I just see it as essential to any empirical question, but not necessarily essential to justification in terms of meeting those predictions.
Like, I could have a model that makes predictions that I can't yet test, and makes other and I could use so I can't technically falsify it today, but it does make definite predictions. And then I do other kinds of argumentation or evidence that makes me more confident in this model. I don't think that's improper. You couldn't say that, like, I think there's probably a threshold of confidence you could reach in that way. But if your model makes no falsifiable predictions, like in principle falsifiable, then like what is it even doing? You know?
It's just not science. It's like some metaphysical or ad hoc thing going on.
Maybe
right?
that's my confusion. Like I don't understand, like a model that makes no falsifiable predictions seems like almost like a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, like in other words, it's not really saying anything at all.
Right.
Well, I think like there's a problem with psychology because the thing is that every when you postulate an intentional explanation, the idea is that intentionality and intention can fail. They can also succeed. So you're not going to be able to just confirm or confirm like you can in other like in scientific ventures. So that's like one of the oddball of everything, right? In terms of falsification. So like if a member in your household wanted orange juice from the fridge, the problem is that the orange juice being in the fridge confirms the failure of that intention, but orange juice not being in the fridge confirms the success of that intention. So the idea is that the intention is consistent with whatever sorts of predictions that you posit from the intention. So that there's a huge problem with that. So I think that a lot of how we construe what's a probable explanation, intentional explanation, can't be about falsification. So that's something that I think points towards Jace. But that's why I'm inclined to think that intentional explanations are in principle unfalsifiable. I'm just not inclined to think that any intentional explanation is going to be one that's a scientific explanation.
By the way, I didn't mean to derail Neff's whole stream with just this one topic. So
no, you're fine. This is why
yeah, so I mean, like, if Jordan, Danny, or Neff, if you guys have any closing thoughts on this topic, I'm happy to hear them. And after that, whatever further discussion you'd like to have before ending the stream, I'm game.
Yeah, I'm actually getting really tired, so I think this might be a good place to wrap up now that everyone's starting to kind of drop off. But overall, I think the debate was really good. So yeah.
Jordan, are you staying for a few minutes after? And Drace, I don't know.
I might. By the way, do any of you guys know who Inspiring Philosophy is?
Yes.
I'm trying to get a debate with him on the resurrection.
Oh boy.
Good luck. I mean,
Okay,
you can do it. I'm just saying good luck.
That'll be a thing.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I like Inspiring Philosophy a lot. He's a good guy.
Well, yeah,
he's a good guy, but he makes my brain hurt.
Yeah. He's definitely a graduate level guy.
Well, in the sense that his arguments make my brain hurt.
Yeah.
I like him better than the was it Capturing Christianity guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got Cameron got grilled recently. I think it was like today or maybe yesterday when Paul Logia came out with his video.
Oh man, it was so bad.
Yeah, Cameron got spanked pretty bad with that one. Apparently, he's issued an apology now.
Oh really? Well,
yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Cameron Bertuzzi is just so annoying. Someone needs to shut him down. I mean, like my friends and I have been in correspondence with him, and what he does is he doesn't know the answer to our questions, and then he, like, of course, corresponds with other apologists, and then gives these like incomplete answers because he doesn't know what he's talking about. and then makes it seem like he knows what he's talking about, and it's just like these like regurgitation responses from like apologists that he's familiar with, or Christian philosophers that he's familiar with, and so it's just like this, it looks like a completely dishonest back and forth, and it's just really annoying.
Yeah, I sympathize.
I think these people need to exist though, right? These like they're irritating, but they bring meaning to my life. It would be so boring if everyone agreed, right? Wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I want people to agree on like homosexuality and like maybe certain social issues. That's fine, but on intellectual issues, disagreement is like why I exist. I mean, in the healthy, like like where like what's going on, like in YouTube, like I need someone to disagree with me. It's like a drive, a Nietzschean drive.
Yep, it's a stimulant for sure.
Yeah, but I don't want them to go away, but I want them to go away.
I mean, if people didn't disagree with me, then no one would ever be wrong on the internet, and I'd have like no meaning to my life.
I know, that's what I'm trying to say, right? But like, anyways, so I don't want these people to go away. So I need these people to so I can complain, and it's just like, oh, it's so great. Like Speed of Sound. Jordan, do you watch the Speed of Sound show?
I haven't seen it now.
Okay, don't watch it. Okay, but they abuse me. Okay, they abuse me, but I love it. It's like, like I say something. I might say something that like, just absolutely triggers them, but I think I take to be true. And of course, I might be a little saucy, but it's all part of the fun, right? Anyways, I'm doing you should watch the video series that I'm doing on Speed. Right, it's actually pretty exposing.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's actually not that. It's just I'm being dramatic, but
you got to get those clicks, man. You got.
Yep. Anyway, guys, I think that'll be a good place to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I'm looking
Happy
forward.
birthday.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you guys so much for joining. Have a wonderful evening. I am out of here. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.